Santi, let's kick off. You have a very interesting profile. You've worked with some big global names, Flex, Johnson Controls, Tyco, obviously the Carbery Group now, and you've also specialised across some very different disciplines: IT, data and analytics, AI, supply chain. And I noticed in your profile you call yourself a technologist, and it's a great term. How do you define that?
Yeah, and look, it's an interesting question, right? And I suppose, look, I just want to stress at the start that I won't go around telling people that I'm a technologist, right? But for me, it's kind of simply defined, by my interest in technology, and how it can aid in business transformation, which is really where my interest lies, right? I've always been interested in emerging tech, and I suppose its application. But I think what we've seen in the last, 5, if not 10 years, right, is the pace of change in what we're seeing with this emerging tech, right? And the challenge now for people, like me working in tech is where to spend the resources time, right, which is always quite challenging. As I said, in the last 5, definitely 10 years, right, the pace of change has been phenomenal, right, in terms of, new technologies, and peers of mine could easily spend their week, evaluating new technologies. I mean, I get pinged multiple times on a weekly basis, right? So it's important, I think, to be, decisive and picking a number of priorities that you can see through to completion. One of the pitfalls I think too often is IT departments, pick too many big bets when they're
Yeah.
setting up their stall for the year. They never see them through to completion, which will only drive frustrations within, IT departments and your internal and external customers as well, I think, right? And then I would say along the lines of the whole kind of technologist, the role of the CIO or the technology leader has kind of pivoted a lot in kind of previous years. And I think we saw a couple of number of pivots, right? The first one probably being the introduction of the CTO office, when the CIO in a lot of organizations was resigned to keeping the lights on, and largely the innovation then came from the office of the CTO. Thankfully, there's a trend now of that now flipping back again to all functions belonging under the CIO. And let's say offices of the CTO, et cetera, all belonging under the CIO, right? So I think, COVID has certainly elevated the role of CIO further into leading business functions as well, right? And definitely when we look at items like automation and analytics, et cetera, right? I think it's a really positive change, right, in terms of the trends that we're seeing at the moment.
It's a really interesting point. I'd agree. I think that's certainly something I've seen trend myself. That move back towards the CIO, and even that CIO title means so many different things now. And again, another good point that you made around spend within IT. I think that's one of the good things probably to come out of the pandemic. I think a lot of big organizations sat back, and actually had to really think about where they were going to go in 2021 and what they were going to spend their money on. I think organizations are probably a lot leaner.